The morning my brother stole my company, I thought I was walking into an ordinary Monday. I was wrong. I arrived at my office at 8:10 a.m. and immediately noticed something strange. My assistant wouldn't meet my eyes. Employees whispered as I walked past them, and several people suddenly became very interested in their computers. Then I saw my younger brother, Ryan, standing inside my office. He was wearing an expensive suit I had never seen before. "What are you doing here?" I asked. Ryan smiled. "Waiting for you." I stepped inside. There were 3 lawyers sitting around my desk, and my wife, Victoria, was sitting beside Ryan. My stomach tightened. "What's going on?" Victoria looked at the floor. Ryan calmly pushed a folder toward me. "Open it." I did. The first page was a corporate resolution removing me as CEO of Coal Systems. I stared at the document. "This is a joke." "No," Ryan said. "It's official." I flipped through the pages. There were signatures from board members, shareholders, and lawyers. Then I saw something that made my hands shake. My signature. "I never signed this." Ryan leaned back in my chair. "You did." "I didn't. You transferred controlling ownership to me 6 weeks ago. That signature is forged." One of the lawyers cleared his throat. "Mr. Cole, we're not here to argue about the past. The transfer has already been registered." I looked at Victoria. She finally raised her eyes. "How long?" She swallowed. "How long what? How long have you and Ryan been doing this?" Silence. That silence told me everything. Ryan placed another document on the desk. "There's one more thing." I looked down. It was a divorce agreement. Victoria had already signed it. I couldn't breathe for a moment. "You're leaving me?" "I've been unhappy for a long time," she whispered. I looked at Ryan. "And you're with him?" Neither answered. They didn't have to. I felt anger rising inside me, but I forced it down. 11 years. That's how long I had spent building Coal Systems. I started with 1 laptop and a tiny rented office. I worked 18-hour days. I missed holidays, birthdays, and vacations. Ryan had joined me later. I trusted him enough to make him my business partner. And Victoria had been beside me through all of it. Now they had taken everything. Or so they believed. Because there was one thing they didn't know. 3 weeks earlier, my CFO, Marcus Hale, had discovered suspicious transfers from company accounts. The money had been moving through several shell companies connected to Ryan. Instead of confronting him, I called my attorney, Sophia Grant. Together, we created a backup plan. A plan designed specifically for the day someone tried to steal my company. And that day had finally arrived. I slowly closed the folder. Ryan smiled. "So, are you going to fight?" I looked directly into his eyes. "No." He seemed surprised. I stood up. "Congratulations, Ryan." His smile grew wider. He thought I had surrendered. He had no idea that, under the table, my phone was recording every word he had just said. And he certainly had no idea that Sophia was already waiting for my call. I walked out of the office without looking back. Behind me, Ryan laughed. He thought he had won. He had no idea that I had been preparing for this moment long before he ever knew I suspected him. I didn't go home after leaving the office. I drove straight to a small hotel on the other side of the city, the kind of place nobody from Coal Systems would ever expect me to visit. The moment I entered my room, I locked the door and called Sophia. "Tell me everything is ready." "It is," she replied. "Then activate the first stage." There was a short silence. "Are you sure, Ethan?" I looked through the window at the city below. "No, but I'm done letting them destroy what I built." Sophia exhaled. Then it started. I sat on the edge of the bed. For the first time since the betrayal, I allowed myself to think about Victoria. 9 years of marriage. 9 years of believing she loved me. I remembered our wedding day, our first apartment, the nights when we stayed awake talking about the future. Had any of it been real? I didn't have an answer. My phone suddenly vibrated. It was Marcus. "We have a problem. Ryan is already changing the company's accounts." I immediately called him. "How much?" "Almost $2 million. My jaw tightened. "Where is he sending it?" Several private accounts. But don't worry, I kept copies of everything. Good. There was another pause. Ethan, there's something else. What? Ryan just announced a meeting with the investors. Today. Tomorrow morning. I smiled. That was faster than I expected. Ryan wasn't just taking control. He was already trying to prove that he was the new face of Coal Systems. Let him have the meeting, I said. Marcus sounded confused. Are you sure? Yes. Why? Because tomorrow is when he'll make his biggest mistake. After hanging up, I opened my laptop. I logged into an old account that Ryan didn't know existed. It contained documents from the earliest days of Coal Systems, contracts, emails, financial records, and something much more important, the original intellectual property agreements. Ryan believed he had stolen my company, but he hadn't realized that the company's most valuable technology wasn't actually owned by the corporation. It belonged to a private holding company I had created before Ryan ever joined me, and I still controlled that company. I opened one final folder. Inside was a document titled Project Orion, Emergency Transfer Protocol. I stared at it for several seconds. Then I called Nathan Reed, the engineer who had helped develop Orion. He answered immediately. Ethan, is the system ready? Yes. Can Ryan access it? No. He doesn't even know it exists. I leaned back. Good. Tomorrow, Ryan would walk into that investor meeting believing he was the CEO of my company. He would expect congratulations, investments, respect. Instead, he was going to discover that the one thing he needed most had never belonged to him. I closed my laptop. For the first time since that terrible morning, I felt calm. Ryan had taken my company. Victoria had taken my marriage. But they had made one fatal mistake. They had mistaken my silence for weakness. And tomorrow I was going to show them the difference. The next morning, I arrived at the hotel lobby just before 9. I didn't go to the investor meeting. Instead, I watched it through a secure video feed Nathan had arranged. Ryan stood at the front of the conference room wearing the same expensive suit from the day before. Victoria was sitting beside him. They looked confident, almost happy. There were 6 investors around the table, including Daniel Brooks, the man who had invested millions into Coal Systems during its early years. Ryan began speaking. Today marks a new chapter for this company. I almost laughed. He talked about growth, innovation, and his vision for the future. Then Daniel interrupted him. Where is Ethan? Ryan smiled. Ethan decided to step away. Permanently? Yes. Daniel frowned. I'd like to hear that from him. Ryan's expression changed. He's emotionally unstable right now. This situation has been difficult for him. I clenched my fists. He was already rewriting the story, making himself the victim, making me look like the problem. Then Victoria spoke. Ethan wasn't capable of handling the pressure anymore. I stared at the screen. That hurt more than I expected. Not because I believed her, because I remembered how many nights I had stayed awake while she slept beside me, working to make sure she never had to worry about money. Sophia suddenly called. Ethan, it's time. I nodded. Send it. 10 seconds later, every investor in the conference room received an email. The room went silent. Daniel opened the attachment. His face changed immediately. What is this? Ryan looked confused. What? Daniel turned his laptop toward him. Why does the company not own the Orion technology? Ryan froze. I smiled. That was the first question. Then another investor opened the legal documents. The intellectual property belongs to Coal Holdings. Ryan stood up. That's impossible. Sophia's voice came through my phone. Watch. The meeting continued. Ryan started calling lawyers. Victoria looked terrified. Daniel demanded answers. Finally, Ryan shouted, Ethan did this. Daniel looked at him. No, you did this. Ryan stared at him. Daniel continued. You told us you owned the company's core technology. I do. You don't. The room erupted into arguments. Ryan grabbed his phone and walked outside. Seconds later, mine rang. His name appeared on the screen. I answered. What do you want? You set me up. No. You planned this. I looked out the hotel window. I prepared for the possibility that someone might betray me. You're my brother. And you stole my company. You can't do this to me. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. You should have checked what you were stealing. He went silent. Then his voice became quieter. What do you want? I thought about Victoria. About everything they had done. Nothing. What? I don't want my company back today. Ryan sounded confused. Then why are you doing this? I smiled. Because this isn't the end. I hung up. Sophia immediately called again. Ethan, there's something you need to know. What? We found the original evidence of the forged transfer. My heart stopped. Where? Ryan's private office. I stood up. Get it. We're already on our way. For the first time, Ryan's betrayal wasn't just a personal disaster. It was becoming evidence. And I knew exactly what I was going to do with it. I arrived at Ryan's private office 40 minutes later. Sophia was already there with Marcus. The door was locked, but Marcus had access to the building's security system. He opened the electronic records on his laptop and pointed at the screen. Someone accessed Ryan's office last night. Who? He enlarged the image. My stomach tightened. Victoria. She had entered the office at 11:43 p.m. and stayed for almost an hour. What was she doing here? Sophia handed me a small envelope. We found this inside Ryan's desk. I opened it. Inside were printed emails, bank transfers, and copies of messages between Ryan and Victoria. I read the first page. Ethan will never suspect us. The second page was worse. Once he signs the transfer, everything belongs to Ryan. Then I found something that made my hands shake. A message from Victoria. If Ethan refuses to sign, I'll make sure everyone believes he's mentally unstable. I closed my eyes. For a few seconds, I couldn't breathe. I had spent 9 years defending that woman, and she had been planning my destruction. Marcus quietly said, "There's more." He opened another file. The messages showed that Ryan had paid someone to create documents using my signature. Everything was there. Dates, payments, instructions, even recordings. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was a case. Sophia looked at me. We can take this to the authorities. I nodded. But not yet. She frowned. Why? Because Ryan still thinks he's safe. I wanted him comfortable. I wanted him confident. I wanted him to believe that the worst thing that could happen was losing the company. There was still one piece missing. Daniel Brooks, Ryan's new investor. I needed him to see the entire truth before he decided whether to protect Ryan. So I called him. He answered immediately. Ethan, I need to talk to you. About Ryan? Yes. What did he tell you? That you transferred everything voluntarily. I sent him the evidence. He opened it while we were on the phone. There was silence. Then he whispered, "This can't be real." "It is. Why didn't you show me this yesterday?" "Because yesterday you still believed him." Daniel didn't respond. Finally, he said, "What do you want from me?" "Nothing." "Then why?" "Because Ryan is going to ask you for more money." Daniel laughed bitterly. "He already did." I looked at Marcus. "What did he say?" "He said the company needed emergency funding." "How much?" $10 million. I smiled. "Don't give him a cent." I wasn't planning to. That night, I returned to the hotel. For the first time, I thought I could finally sleep. Then my phone rang. It was Victoria. I almost ignored it, but I answered. "Ethan." Her voice was shaking. "We need to talk." "About what?" "Ryan lied to me." I said nothing. "He told me the company was already his." "It isn't." "I know." There was a long silence. Then she whispered something I wasn't expecting. "Ryan didn't just steal your company." My heart started beating faster. "What else did he do?" Victoria took a breath. "He planned to destroy you completely." I sat up. "Tell me everything." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "But you have to promise me one thing first." "What?" "Don't let Ryan know that I told you." I stayed silent for several seconds. Victoria, what did Ryan plan to do? She took a shaky breath. He wanted you arrested. I frowned. For what? Financial fraud. I felt a cold pressure in my chest. He created fake transactions using your name. He was going to make it look like you had stolen money from the company. I looked at Sophia, who was sitting across from me. She immediately understood. Do you have proof? I asked. Yes. Where? Ryan's apartment. There's a safe behind a painting in his bedroom. I stood up. What's inside? I don't know everything, but I saw documents with your name on them. Why are you telling me this now? She was quiet. Because I finally realized what Ryan really wanted. What? He didn't want your company. I waited. He wanted your life. Those words stayed with me after the call ended. Sophia immediately contacted the police through her legal network while Marcus began checking every transaction connected to Ryan. But I still didn't move. Something wasn't right. Victoria had betrayed me. Why would she suddenly help me? I called her again. There's one thing I don't understand. What? Why did you help him in the first place? Silence. Then she began crying. Because he told me you were going to leave me. I closed my eyes. He said you had another woman. He showed me messages. Fake messages? Yes. I felt something inside me break. Not because I wanted Victoria back. I didn't. But because I realized how carefully Ryan had manipulated both of us. He told me if I helped him, we'd build a better life together. And now, I found out he was planning to leave me too. I wasn't surprised. Ryan had never wanted a partner. He wanted control. I told Victoria to stay where she was and not confront him. Then Sophia looked at me. We need that safe. I know. An hour later, Marcus and I were standing outside Ryan's apartment. We didn't enter. We waited. Because this time I wanted Ryan to open the door himself. At 10:17 p.m. he arrived. He looked exhausted. His expensive suit was wrinkled. His phone wouldn't stop ringing. Investors were abandoning him. The board was demanding explanations. Daniel had frozen his funding. Ryan walked inside. 5 minutes later, Sophia sent me a message. He opened the safe. I watched through the security feed Marcus had legally obtained from the building system. Ryan pulled out a folder. Then another. Then a small black drive. My heart stopped. The drive had one label. Orion. Original source code. I looked at Nathan. He immediately shook his head. That can't be the original. What do you mean? I created the original with you. Ryan never had access to it. I stared at the screen. Then I understood. The drive wasn't the source code. It was something else. Something Ryan had hidden inside the safe. Sophia zoomed in. A single folder appeared on the screen. Its name was Ethan. If you find this, you're already too late. I felt a chill run down my spine. Ryan opened the folder. And suddenly his face went completely white. Ryan stared at the screen for nearly a minute. I couldn't see what was inside the folder, but I could see his reaction. Fear. Real fear. He grabbed the black drive and tried to close the laptop. Too late. Sophia had already copied everything. What's on it? I asked. She opened the files. There were dozens of documents, contracts, bank records, private messages, and one video. Nathan looked at the file name. That's impossible. What? That recording was supposed to have been deleted. Sophia played it. Ryan appeared on the screen. He was sitting in a restaurant with Daniel Brooks. The recording was dated 4 months earlier. Ryan was speaking. Once Ethan is removed, I'll control everything. Daniel asked, and Victoria? Ryan laughed. She'll be useful until I don't need her anymore. Victoria covered her mouth. I felt nothing. Not anger. Not sadness. Just emptiness. Then Ryan said something that changed everything. There's another problem. Ethan created a private holding company years ago. If he activates it, he can take the Orion technology away from us. Daniel asked, Does he know? No. Ryan smiled. He doesn't even remember creating it. I looked at Sophia. She slowly turned toward me. You really didn't remember? No. She opened another document. It contained the original incorporation papers for Cole Holdings. My name was on them. The company had been created 11 years earlier, before Cole Systems even existed. I suddenly remembered. I had created it after reading an article about protecting intellectual property. Then I had forgotten about it. Everything suddenly made sense. Orion wasn't owned by Cole Systems. Cole Holdings owned it, and I owned Cole Holdings. Ryan had stolen the company, but he hadn't stolen the heart of it. Sophia looked at me. You could shut down his entire operation tomorrow. I shook my head. Not yet. Ethan, why? Because he still thinks he can escape. I pointed at the screen. Look at the recording. Ryan was talking about another person. Someone I hadn't heard mentioned before. Who is Victor Lane? Sophia searched the name. Her expression changed. He's a private financial consultant. What does he have to do with Ryan? She opened another file. Victor had received payments from Ryan for almost a year. Millions of dollars. Marcus checked the dates. Some of these payments happened before the company transfer. I frowned. So Ryan was planning this long before I knew anything. Apparently. Then my phone rang. It was Daniel. Ethan, you need to come to the office. Why? I found something in Ryan's files. What? A contract between Ryan and Victor Lane. Send it to me. I already did. I opened the attachment. My blood ran cold. The contract wasn't about my company. It was about me. Ryan had paid Victor to monitor my finances, track my movements, and collect personal information. But the final page contained something even worse. Payment scheduled for tomorrow. The description read, Final stage. Permanent removal of Ethan Cole from business operations. I stared at those words. Ryan hadn't planned to simply steal my company. He planned to make sure I could never come back. I looked at Sophia. Tomorrow, I said. We end this. She nodded. But before I could say anything else, another message appeared on my phone. It was from Ryan. I know where you are. A second message followed. And I know about your secret plan. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt genuinely afraid. Not for my company, not for my money, for my life. Ryan knew about the plan. He knew I had been collecting evidence. And if the contract was real, tomorrow wasn't just about business. It was about stopping him before he could make his final move. I showed Sophia the messages. She immediately stood up. Call the police. I will. But before I could dial, my phone rang again. Ryan. I answered. Where are you? His voice was strangely calm. Why? Because I want to talk. You've had plenty of opportunities. I know what you've been doing. I looked at Sophia. She silently shook her head, telling me not to reveal anything. Ryan continued. You always thought you were smarter than me. I never thought that. You did. His voice became bitter. You had everything. The company, the money, Victoria. Everyone respected you. You could have built your own life. I tried. No, Ryan. You wanted mine. Silence. Then he laughed. You still don't understand. Understand what? This was never about the company. My stomach tightened. What was it about? You. The call ended. I immediately sent everything to the authorities. Then Sophia looked at me. We have enough evidence. Then let's finish it. The next morning, Ryan called an emergency board meeting. He expected me to stay hidden. Instead, I walked through the front doors of Cole Systems. Every employee turned toward me. Nobody spoke. I walked straight into the conference room. Ryan was standing at the head of the table. His face went pale. You. I pulled out a chair and sat down. Good morning. Daniel was already there. So were the investors. Sophia placed a folder on the table. Ryan looked at it. What is that? Your future. He laughed nervously. You can't threaten me. I'm not threatening you. I opened the folder. I'm showing everyone what you did. Sophia began distributing copies. The forged transfer. the illegal payments, the messages between Ryan and Victoria, the recordings, the contract with Victor Lane. Ryan's face changed with every page. Victoria entered the room behind us. Ryan stared at her. "You betrayed me." She shook her head. "No. I finally stopped helping you." He looked at me. "You think you've won?" I smiled. "No." I leaned forward. "I don't need to win." Ryan frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means you already lost." Sophia placed one final document on the table. Ryan read it. His hands started shaking. It was the legal ownership certificate for Orion. Cole Holdings. My name. His eyes widened. "You can't." "I can." "You don't own the technology." "I do." I stood up. "You stole the building. You stole the employees. You stole the title." I looked him directly in the eyes. "But you never stole what made the company valuable." The conference room doors suddenly opened. 2 investigators walked inside. Ryan turned toward them. "No." One of them said his name. "Ryan Cole, you're being placed under arrest." He looked at me desperately. "Ethan, please." I didn't move. For the first time, he understood. There was no escape. But as they took him away, he shouted one final sentence. "You don't know what Victor Lane has." I froze. Sophia looked at me. Then her phone rang. She answered. Her face suddenly became serious. "Ethan." "What?" "Victor Lane is gone." She paused. "And he took something with him." For several seconds, nobody in the room moved. "What's missing?" I asked Sophia. She looked at her phone. "The original Orion backup." My stomach tightened. Nathan immediately shook his head. "That backup isn't useful without the encryption key." I stared at him. "Who has the key?" He looked at me. "You." I suddenly remembered the small metal key I had kept in a locked drawer for years. I had always thought it was connected to an old storage system. I had never imagined it could determine the future of my company. We searched my hotel room. The key was still there. But Victor Lane was already gone. The investigators began tracking him while Sophia contacted every bank connected to his accounts. Then Marcus found something. "Ethan, look." He showed me a transaction. Victor hadn't escaped with the backup to sell it. He had transferred it to a private server. And the destination belonged to Daniel Brooks. I turned toward Daniel. He immediately raised his hands. "I didn't know anything about it." I believed him. But there was one thing that bothered me. "Why would Victor send it to you?" Daniel looked confused. "I don't know." Then his phone vibrated. He checked the message. His face went pale. "It's from Victor." "What does it say?" Daniel handed me the phone. There was only one sentence. "The truth about Ethan's father is in the backup." I stared at the screen. My father had died when I was 17. He had never been involved with Cole Systems. Or at least that's what I had always believed. Nathan looked at me. "Ethan, maybe you should open it." I inserted the key into my laptop. The encrypted file unlocked. Inside was an old video. My father appeared on the screen. Couldn't breathe. He was sitting at the desk of the company he had once owned. He spoke directly into the camera. "If you're watching this, Ethan, then something has gone very wrong." I sat completely still. He explained that he had created the original technology that eventually became Orion. Before his death, he had transferred the intellectual property into Cole Holdings. He had placed ownership in my name. Not Ryan's. Not Victoria's. Mine. He wanted me to build something of my own without knowing that I had inherited the foundation for it. Then he said something I would never forget. "Your greatest protection won't be money, Ethan. It will be knowing who you can trust." The video ended. I looked around the room. Marcus, Sophia, Nathan, Daniel, people who had stayed when everything fell apart. I finally understood what my father had meant. Ryan had taken my company because he believed ownership was everything. He was wrong. Ownership could be stolen. Trust had to be earned. Months later, Ryan was facing multiple charges, while Victoria cooperated with investigators and disappeared from my life. I rebuilt Cole Systems from the ground up. But I changed it completely. No secret partnerships. No blind trust. No family members controlling what they didn't build. And I never forgot that Monday morning. The day I thought I had lost everything. Because in the end, Ryan didn't steal my future. He only showed me who truly belonged in it. And sometimes losing everything is exactly what you need to discover what was actually yours.